Welcome back to the Wizard Shop, and today it's time to talk about an Avalon. And no, I didn't say Avalon King. This is not VinWiki. Let's get started. Before we jump into the Toyota, give you guys a quick update on the old Lincoln Continental you guys recently seen a video on. We kept finding leaks and things going on with the engine and the freeze plugs. We thought we'd do one or two, and it ended up that we just kept finding them that they just rusted out. So many of them. There's like 8 or 10 of them on this engine. And finally I called the customer. I said the hours that we're spending fighting with all this stuff would be as much or more than just go ahead and pull the engine. It'll probably be cheaper to pull the engine. He said, go ahead and do it. So the engine's out. This is the Lincoln 462. We did paint the valve covers the old Lincoln blue. It doesn't look like it matches because the original paint is very old and very faded. We may just go over and cover the whole thing so at least it's all old Lincoln blue again. But once we get all the freeze plugs done, get the valve cover gaskets, oil pan gaskets, there were just so many different things going on leaking, then we can put the engine back in. But it's kind of nice that the engine's out because one of the other things we're going to replace is the steering gearbox, and we can get to that really easily right now. Here's some of those freeze plugs I talked about. They're silver, you can see. Little circular discs inside of the engine block. So that's where we're at on the Continental. We're going to get all this resealed, get it back in. It's going to be a long-term project. The customer's aware of it. But let's go check out the Toyota now. So I get questions all the time. I'm looking for a reliable car, and I'm looking at this Audi S6, and no, stop. Stop messing with the Audis. Stop messing with the Mercedes-Benz. Stop messing with the old Jags if you're looking for sheer reliability. This is the answer to your large sedan problems. It is a 2007 Toyota Avalon with the 3.5 V6. It's got a little over 100,000 miles, and it is in pretty good shape. It's not in showroom condition anymore. Although the miles aren't all that high, it is over a decade old, getting close to 2 decades old before long. Is this thing as stylish as an Audi or a Jag or a Mercedes? No. And they don't try to be either. That's not the intention of this car. It's a good, comfortable car that looks decent and is very reliable. Like I mentioned, it has a little over 100,000 miles on it. I can attest that there's at least 200 more thousand miles to go on this car. There is no car on earth that exists that you never have to replace anything. There is work that had to be done to this car, but it was minor things. Just the parts are expensive and a little bit of labor added up really fast. But let's take a look around this really sweet Avalon. So there's the front end of the Avalon, and yes, it's a dirty car. They've been driving it every day. It's their daily driver. It looks kind of like an oversized Camry, and basically that's what it is. There's some few scrapes and chips in the paint in the front bumper. Also in the wheels you can see the coating is coming off. But like I said, this is their daily driver. It does have an interesting pinstripe. It's like red and tan. I'm not sure if that's stock or if someone had that added on later. It does look pretty decent. There's nothing dented or nothing caved in on the side of this thing. It is, like I said, a little dirty. Here's the rear end. Again, it looks like an oversized Camry. It says Avalon, and you can see they are from Nebraska. More chipping on the wheels there. The coating is coming off. But nothing's dented or caved in or rusting really bad on this side either. It's in fairly good shape. The front bumper is a little worse for the wear though. Let's go ahead and open the hood. Here's our Toyota 3.5 V6, and these are getting into the years of the V6. It does not have timing belts. It has timing chains. which is really nice, so you don't have to mess with that. You can just drive the car and enjoy it. Make sure you keep the maintenance up. As you can see right here, there is an aftermarket HID for the low beam. One of the complaints the customer came in with is the passenger side low beam was out. It had previous aftermarket HIDs on it, and they were old and they were failing. It didn't take very much money. We got good aftermarket units put back in it, and the lights are happy again. These could stand to be refinished. That is probably, I don't even know if the customer would be interested in that, but that would help also make the light a little brighter. But back to the engine, this one has roughly 270 horsepower and 250 pound-feet of torque. They are a very, very good engine. Everything's fairly easy to get to. Nothing's too complicated on these. Here's our air filter, really easy to get to. Our battery, you don't have to go in the trunk or pull the back seat out or do something crazy. It's right there. And you can see the engine looks fairly clean as you look around. It doesn't have a bunch of oil leaks or anything crazy going on. You can also see that ignition coils on these can be a pain to do. Not right here on the front, they're not. But the intake manifold does fold over the rear one, so that does have to come off. But luckily it's very easy to take that off. It's not a big deal. Again, everything looks fairly clean, no oil leaks. So there wasn't a whole lot we had to do under the hood at all. So that's not surprising, a little over 100,000 miles, a 2007 Toyota, and I really don't have to do anything under the hood. That wouldn't be so if it were an Audi or a Mercedes-Benz. Right around 100,000 mile mark is when things start to go downhill with oil leaks and misfires and coils failing, especially on Audis. You guys know the Audi coil packs drop like flies. I actually have a customer in the local area who's a dealer. They had a 2009 Mercedes in here with 120,000 miles on it, and it had oil leaks and all kinds of things going on. It was an ML350, and his comment was, "It's an '09, it shouldn't have all these problems." Yes, it should. It's a German car with over 100,000 miles. They will all start having problems after 100,000 miles. But that's not the case on this Toyota. Let's let Mrs. Wizard give you guys a tour of the interior.
Well, there we are, ladies and gents. It does. It has 102,000 miles on it. And you'll see that it doesn't look like some of the cars we've seen with that many miles on it, because let's look at that dash. Look at that. Not a crack, nothing going on. It's in really amazing shape. As we move around, you'll see that we are surrounded by the fairest of fair wood trim made by the greatest plastic trees on the planet. So it is a nice addition, though, and it does actually look nice, but it is plastic. As you move over, it does have a large screen. I wouldn't call that an infotainment system exactly, but it does have a large screen that makes it very easy to read and doesn't take your eyes too far off the road when you're checking out other things besides the temperature outside, you know, how many miles you got, what your economy is, you know, those important things. As you move down, you'll see that you can cover, there we go, the radio. And that does look nice when that is down. Very soft button, no gummy buttons here. And all of the buttons are still actually showing up nice, so fingernails aren't scratching off that black ink. Also, as we scroll down, you'll see another button that we then can see that is concealing the highly technical and advanced cassette player. So I don't think that one gets used a whole lot, so it probably stays down a lot. As we move down, more covers, so they do a good job with keeping items, you know, concealed, so it can look as nice as possible in here as well. As we move over to the seats, you'll see that they are a taupe-colored leather, and while they may not have a large bolster on the side, this is not a 500 horsepower car, so we probably shouldn't need those, and they are actually quite comfortable to sit in. Maybe not a sofa like we get in the old Cadillacs, but it is still pretty comfy. It does have a large full back seat, room for 3 people to sit back there with the legroom to go with it. So it does actually have quite a bit of space. It does look like there's a few marks on that seat belt back there, so it has been sat in back there, it looks like, but it doesn't actually show on the leather in the seating area. As we roll up to the headliner, you'll see that there's no crazy marks, no sagging. It's all looking good. Do seem to have a very small little hole there in the headliner above the sunroof. But other than that, easy solution, put that back and no longer see the hole. As we end up here at the steering wheel, you'll see that we have some very simple controls here to adjust the volume and settings on the radio, but we also have a temperature adjustment as well, which can be a nice feature. I'm not seeing that on too many models of cars. Not that we have too many Toyotas in the shop here, but on other models, I don't see that on our high-end European ones as well. So, well, that's all there is about this interior. Let's get this thing up in the air and see what's going on underneath.
One of the things that we did in the interior that you really can't see is the customer was having issues with their auto up, auto down. And one of the things we found was there's an encoder motor inside the actual window motor. We had to pull the door panel off and replace the window regulator assembly, motor and everything. And we got it all recalibrated, put back together. And I was surprised how expensive it was. Most window regulators I can get for domestic or Asian cars, $100, $120 or something. It's really not that expensive, but on this one, the regulator was $100, and then the window motor was over $200. You had to buy them separately and put them together. So it was kind of like, ooh, that's a little bit more than I expected, but it's probably because the window motor is not just a simple motor. There's more to it. There's things inside of it. We also replaced a CV shaft, and we'll see that here in a minute when we take a look underneath. Let's get started on that. You can see some of the scratches again on the bumper. I'm not too concerned with that because it is a daily driver. Let's go ahead and move under here. Look how dry the engine is. There's our oil pan. You can see they used silicone from the factory, RTV. Nice and dry. This is actually grease blobs from the CV shaft. The old one had failed and it was slinging grease all over the place, making noises, and we'll get that cleaned off. But other than that, the transmission is dry, the engine's dry, and that's fully what I expect to see on a Toyota product. You can see right here, the passenger side CV axle assembly's been replaced. The old one, the boot had cracked, it got water in it. The joint was bad. It was making noises when they turn. Now that has been solved, it's nice and quiet. Our brake pads are nice and thick. Obviously the boots are good because they are new, on this side anyway. Struts are nice and dry. Sway bar link is good. Everything looks good there. Brakes are nice and thick on this side. The axle boot is nice and dry. The strut is nice and dry. Sway bar link is good. And that boot as well is nice and dry. Move back to here. Here's our catalytic converter. This is not an all-wheel drive, so we don't have any drive shafts back here. Just a simple exhaust. Look how simple this thing is, guys. This is what adds to the longevity of these cars and also the decrease of headaches in ownership of these cars. It's just sheet metal. There's no gadgets, there's no modules, there's no gizmos. It's just very simple. Here's our gas tank, which is nice and dry, which is a very good thing. Here's our exhaust. Here's our harmonic resonance absorption device. It's just a rubber and a piece of weighted steel. Here is the rear brakes. They are about 50% gone, but they're still good. Strut is dry. Sway bar link is good. Everything's nice and dry over here and looks good. Move to this side. Brakes are good. Strut is good. Sway bar link is good. This bar is not loose. Everything looks good there as well. And we move to the back, which is hanging off the back of the lift because it's a long car. No rust going on here in our spare tire trunk area. We do have dual exhaust, even though it goes 2 into 1, but it goes back into 2 at the rear to give it a sporty look. And that's about it. We'll take a look at these tires real quick. They are from 2017, so they are about 5 years old. It's getting towards the end of as far as years go, probably not miles. but they're still good. They're not at the point where they need to be tossed out. They're still good tires, good Cooper tires. Let's go ahead and get this thing on the ground. So that pretty much sums it up on this car. It's not really a large list. Some of the items themselves were kind of expensive to buy. The labor was a little bit intensive, but it wasn't too bad. But we got everything together and the bill really wasn't all that high. I don't get a lot of these in the shop because they're really that good of a car. Now, is there anything wrong with an Audi, Mercedes, BMW? Yes, there is something wrong with a BMW. But the others I mentioned, Volkswagen, they're good cars. I like them. I actually love Audis. I love the way they look. I love the way they drive. But reliability and Audi don't go together. Reliability and Jaguar do not go together. Like I said, I get asked a lot, I'm looking at this Audi, is it reliable? No, it's not going to be, especially with 100,000 miles on it. It's not. This will. So to answer the question, I'm looking for a car, 2007, 10, 12 range, not a whole lot of money. What's a good, reliable car? A Toyota Avalon is a good, reliable car. Now remember, guys, you're probably going to pay more for this Toyota than you would for a Chevy or a Buick Lucerne or something like that, because they know it's that good of a car. Don't be that person that says, I found a Buick with a 3.6, it was half the cost, I got a really good deal. Just wait till the timing chains go bad on that. The savings that you made initially will be gone in the snap of a finger.
Kind of like buying a Nissan Juke.
Junk.
Joke,
yeah. I'm actually still waiting on bearings on that, guys. The ones they sent me from the dealership were 25 millimeter oversized. And I called them and said, I need standard size. And they're like, there are none. So I'm searching overseas where they're very prevalent. There's lots of them overseas, actually. It's the MR16 DDT engine. I'm looking for standard cam bearings, standard rod bearings. But like I mentioned, you will pay more for one of these cars. Don't get suckered into the one sitting beside it that's $4,000 cheaper, the Buick or the Kia or whatever. Actually, the new Kias are really good. I'm talking about the older ones. So you have someone in your family who is not a car person. They just want reliability. They're not even concerned that much with the way it looks. This is the ticket, albeit for a little higher price when you purchase it initially. But the savings over the next 5 years will more than pay for what you spent on the car initially. So this is the ticket, guys. If you're curious what kind of tools that Magic Mike used to fix the items we talked about on this car, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And we are booked all the way to July, guys. We got cars coming in, which means more and more videos coming in. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.